Tony Leonardi and the Youngstown State University Jazz Ensembles.
Drummer Darren Allen is a Cleveland native who was in the YSU Jazz Ensembles from 1998 through 2002. He's currently music department chair and head band director at Bay High School in Bay Village, Ohio. Darren also performs with numerous bands throughout Cleveland, including the Skach Anderson Orchestra, the Cleveland Winds, the Parma Symphony Orchestra, and Powerhouse 5. Here's my interview with Darren Allen. Hi, Darren. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Thank you.
Great. Nice to see you again and see you're representing YSU.
That's right. Yeah. I have my COVID hair going, so I wanted to make sure I covered that up well.
Oh, no worries. So it's been a while since I've seen you. I think the last time I saw you was either the Dior concert or Skach Anderson performance in Cleveland.
Yeah, I forget which one was last, but that's for sure. It's been a little bit.
Yeah. So what have you been up to?
Doing my thing. I'm a teacher in the Cleveland area and teach band, and I play. And when I'm not hanging out with my family, I'm golfing. So it's probably one of those three things.
Very nice. Very nice. So when you think about my father, if you were talking to somebody that didn't have the opportunity to know him or to meet him, how would you describe him, either in one word or a description?
I think passion comes to mind. He was a very passionate person about a lot of things, definitely jazz, definitely teaching. And I think that he was pretty intense too. He could be intense in rehearsal, and he's very demanding. He expected 100% effort from you, and if he noticed you weren't given that, he was pretty much all over you. You were in the hot seat in any chair in that group, but especially as a drummer or a bass player. He held you accountable and let you know when you weren't doing it for him.
Right. So, how did you become aware of the program at YSU, and what got you into drums and jazz, and how did it all start for you?
Well, I think my mom always teases me that I was drumming in utero. She told me, but so I think I've always had that gene. But like a lot of people my age, we started in band in fifth grade, and got whatever instrument. I got a snare drum from a friend of the family, and soon after that, I bought a Blue Sparkle drum kit off of a neighbor for I paid $50, I think, out of my own pocket, and man, I've been playing drums ever since, probably 30 years now or so, and I think that it was mostly school band stuff that I did. What I teach now. Is how I learned for the most part. And I joined jazz band in eighth grade and was in jazz band, ever since. And so I got into it a little bit there. But I think the thing that got me in was I was at a flea market in Florida. We hung out in Florida a lot, my family, on vacation. And I found a Buddy Rich cassette. And there were cassettes back then. And it was one that actually I think Glenn Wilson's on, a bunch of YSU cats I think are on there, and man, it just was like, yeah, that's awesome music. I need to get into that and learn more about that, and that was kind of my gateway into jazz and checking out Miles Davis and other things like that, and so I was hooked after that. Playing drums and playing in jazz bands, and it's a big passion of mine. So.
Cool. And then how did you end up at YSU?
Right. So a buddy of mine in high school, Don McDonald, a trumpet player, knew about it, and I don't remember exactly how he knew about it, but he was like, "You got to come to YSU with me," and I'm like, "Okay." I was going to be a music major. I had, applied to a few spots, and he's like, "Oh, there's a great jazz program." I'm like, "Oh, I'm into that. Let's do it." So I auditioned and made it in, and I went to the two jazz camps. There was two that Tony put on in 98, 99, and so I met him first there, and man, I mean, just a great lineup. John Riley was our drum guy, and I think Nick Brignola ran my combo the one year, and so I met Tony through that, and I got to hear him play the first time there. They would put on faculty concerts, and I remember the one night it was real loose. They weren't, organized. They didn't have a set list or anything. They'd just be like, "Hey, let's play this," and so the last tune came, and somebody was like, let's do Cherokee, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay," and they started like discussing, and Tony, you could see him, he was getting a little anxious, and he just finally just was like, "I'm just gonna start do 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 do," just as fast as he could, and double stops and whatever, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, we're going now." So that was my introduction to Tony and his playing, and um, man, I remember the other thing from that. Randy Johnston was their guitar player. He was a really funny dude, but I don't think he understood education and the age level he was teaching, and he told a pretty raunchy story about Lou Donaldson, um, and Tony got in a lot of trouble for that. I think some kid told his mom or something, and and and, and Tony got in a little trouble. So suffice it to say, Randy wasn't there the next year, but but I remember those jazz camps really fondly. I learned a lot, and got to know the program a little bit before I started there the next year. So I mean, that was very cool.
Oh, yeah. So you officially started in 99?
98, yeah.
98.
Fall of 98, I think, yeah. Yeah, and I auditioned for the big bands right away. Back then there was four of them, and I didn't make one the first time. I tried out and looked for my name, and my name wasn't there, and
Oh,
it was crushing for me because that was my thing. I loved the big band. Obviously, I was trained to become a teacher, but I wanted to play in these big bands I'd heard about, and so that was awful. And then I was walking by the room one day, and I forget who it was, if it was Kent or somebody, like popped his head out of the rehearsal room, and I was walking by. He's like, "Hey, you're a drummer, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Hey, our drummer, is flaking out on us here. Why don't you come be the drummer of fourth band?" I'm like, "Great," So got in there, and then the next quarter, made it into third band, which Tony was teaching. Had a great time, and there's all the good freshman players were in that, all my buddies, and that's where I got my first taste of being in the hot seat with Tony and and that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, I have lots of great memories from jazz rehearsals. I mean, I would have to literally run from marching band practice to Jazz One rehearsal. For some reason, they were like back to back, and you know where the stadium is, and you know where Bliss Hall is. They're not close. And then on top of it, I had my quints. I have heavy five drums, across me, and so I literally had to sprint to Bliss Hall, and Tony wasn't going to have me being late. He was all about you being on time and being ready to go. He wanted to use all that time up. So a lot of times I was huffing and puffing and sweaty by the time I got to jazz rehearsal.
wow. That's a crazy haul
Yeah,
with
yeah.
all of that on you. Oh,
Yes. Yeah. I can't remember the exact schedule, how many times a week it was. Like, I feel like it was at least 2 or 3 times a week I'd have to do that run.
wow. Wow. Yeah. And I've interviewed some other people who had him before you, and they have similar stories.
Getting to class on time.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So what, since you're now in teaching, what do you think, looking back, made Tony as successful as he was at it? What attributes would you say that he possessed that really made him stand out, as far as an educator?
Yeah, I mean, this is my thing. I'm a teacher. I study it. I live it, and he's one of my top teachers I've ever had. I think the first thing is you have to have a passion for teaching and kids, and no matter how demanding he was, or gruff, or whatever word you want to use, he always, you knew that he cared about you. I remember I was volunteering in improv my freshman year, trying to get my foot in the door more, and so I wasn't even taking the class. I was just, hey, come drum for us while we're playing these few days, and he the would have me play and whatever, and just be all over me, because I was still learning and getting good time and everything. And man, I would like go upstairs to the third floor, I think it was, that had all the practice rooms and stuff. His office was way down the hallway, and he'd see me all the way down the hallway, and he'd shout, "Dude, get on top of the beat," and just like be all over me wherever I was at all times. It seemed like he'd pop out of doors and just be yelling at me about something. But it showed you he cared about it, and when you did do it right, man, he was the first to praise you, and I think it meant more because of that. Like, he didn't use praise as just an everyday thing. It didn't lose its meaning. So that passion he had for helping you improve, and when you did put a smile on his face, you felt pretty good about yourself. So I think that's an awesome thing as a teacher. I think the other thing that I always loved was all the opportunities that he got for his kids. I mean, just trying to think through right now of the names that I got to play with or saw there at YSU. It's amazing. I mean, just who's who of jazz at that time, and that he brought in, and that was opportunities that he had for us. And I think that's another part that I, as a teacher, try and do is bring in real cats for him to play. And I think the other thing that I admire about his teaching was he was a performer, and he was still doing it while he was teaching. And I think a lot of band teachers and music teachers stop sometimes when they're teaching. And I think it's important to have that connection to what we do. And I think it informs our teaching a lot. And he was obviously, a professional jazz bass player. And, I think that showed in his teaching that he had that to pull from those experiences. I got two funny stories from him advocating for YSU. I mean, he loved YSU, and he loved, his jazz program there that he started. And, we all love Dr. Gage and kind of take it for granted. He's been there for, 80 years or something now. But he's just an awesome educator, and might not have been there if it wasn't for Tony. As the story goes, and I'm telling all of this, eighth hand, but he came in for his interview, and everybody loved him, and Tony was like, "We got to have this guy at YSU. He's amazing." And so he went to Dr. Gage's hotel room, and he was about to leave and go back to Syracuse, and Tony literally like blocked the door and wouldn't let him leave till he told him he was coming to YSU. So I think that was the kind of thing that Tony was Tony. He was passionate about it, and he wanted the best, and wasn't going to accept second best there. I think the other funny story that Dr. Schaff just told me, again secondhand, so I might mess it up, but was he rehearsed for a long time just in the main rehearsal room before they got that nice jazz studio. And he, at one point, whoever was cleaning was just leaving trash everywhere, or music or papers or whatever, and he was getting upset about it because it was his room that he worked in, and so he was there was a staff meeting going on he was supposed to be at, and he wasn't there, and people were wondering, oh, where's Tony, and that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden he comes in with this garbage bag full, dumps it on the desk, and says, "Hey, I just picked all of this up from the rehearsal room. This is ridiculous, And strangely enough, everything got fixed after that. So, that's Tony. He took the bulls by the horn. So.
Yep, that's so him. Did he ever share stories with your class? I have to imagine he did, about being on the road at all. Like, did he ever tell any funny stories about working with Woody Herrmann or any of those, Nat King Cole or any of those guys?
Yeah, I think that's he definitely did. One of my regrets is I didn't pick his brain more about that stuff. But a lot of the times we were rehearsing, so it's not like you can just waste his time. He wasn't going to let that happen. So, but yeah, I mean, I remember him talking about playing with Buddy Rich, one of my drum idols, and so I'm glad I heard that story. I guess he was coming through and playing um, at the park there in Youngstown, and had fired his bass player like he does. Old Buddy Rich saying 2 weeks, 2 weeks you have left to find somebody else, and so he had fired his bass player, needed a bass player, asked around the area, and everybody was like, "You got to get Tony, right?" So Tony was there, and just met him right before he went on stage, and had no information coming into it, and here he is playing with the Buddy Rich big band, and so he looked over at Tony and then counted off the band, and they started going, and I forget what tune he said it was, but it was something up tempo, of course, with Buddy Rich, and Tony said by the time he got to like the fourth bar, he was like 2 bars behind already. and Buddy stopped the band, looked over at him, and then counted the tune off again. And Tony said, "I was right there the whole rest of the time, man. I was all over it, so." That was one story I definitely remember that Tony told us about playing, and it's great to hear those things. And like I said, I mean, that's why what he meant, what he's taught you, what he was talking about meant more, because he had stuff to back it up. He had done it before, so.
Right. Now, is there anything that you kind of carried with you and implement in your teaching that you taught, or that he taught you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of the stuff that he taught me, even as a drummer, I remember. And this may be a good time to play the recording for you guys. But yeah, I mean, I teach this to my drummers, like the end of a tune, he called it a button, right? And when he cut you off, he wanted it to be, right when he cut you off in a certain way. And if it was a ballad, it was kind of a little nicer thing, both of your feet or something. And I remember him telling me that, and I still teach all of my big band drummers that at high school. And I remember just this week, we were playing some chart, like a bassy chart with loud hits in it, just short little hits, and he would always call them gunshots. He was like, "You play those as loud as you can, because it's not going to cover up anything. It's more exciting," and that sort of thing. So also his conducting for a big band was just awesome. He patterned himself off of Thad Jones, and so how he kind of runs and conducts a big band. I do the same stuff to this day. But going back to buttons, I did go through. I just had bought a mini disc player back in the day, when that was the cool thing, and had a microphone, and I recorded all of our rehearsals. And there's too many to go through before this interview, but I did find this great one that I remember vividly. Kind of embarrassing for me, but it was a moment that I'll never forget. So we were playing this tune, it's like Big Ed's Monday Night. So it was like a big shuffle, and had fill at the end that I was supposed to play bar fill, and then have the band come in at the end, and my chops just entirely fail me, and it was the dress rehearsal, so it was, even more pressure because he wanted it to go real well, so he knew he didn't have to worry for the concert, right? So I'll play you the first part is my awful fill, and then everybody, laughing hysterically, making fun of me. Tony jumps in there and starts piling on, and you'll hear Sean Jones even. Sean was there in the band at that time, and Sean even, makes fun of my nerdy drummingness. You'll hear him, and then he makes us do it again. He's like, I can't, handle this. Let's do it again. So I'll play that far for you, so you can. It's just nice to hear Tony's voice too.
Yes, thank you.
Here you go. All right, so he asked me, "You don't have epilepsy, do you?" Like that was Tony. Like he would just eviscerate you just for fun, and afterwards you could laugh about it.
Right. After you melt it into butter.
Yes. So he says, let's do it again. So me having a little pride and maybe maybe a little dangerous side of me at that moment, I decided to get him back. So that button at the end, he cuts the band off, and then you'll hear a pause, and then I hit, okay? And you'll hear the band, start breaking down laughing again, and then the next laugh you hear is Tony, and he's taking off his belt buckle, and he starts chasing me around the room, like mimicking that he's going to beat me with his belt. And then you hear everybody break up even more, and I think even Kent starts laughing at that point. So here's the next take here.
I'm not going to finish up with that thing. Then I'll have nightmares. Play the last time, G. 1, 2, on, tikung, kaki.
Oh, yeah.
Young whippersnapper.
Young whippersnapper. Yeah. So
Oh my gosh.
the rest of that rehearsal, he had a really big glint in his eye, and he just kept looking over at me and laughing because he know I gave it back to him a little bit. So
Yep.
he I think I think that went a long way to giving me a little more slack next rehearsal.
That's awesome. I think that he respected people that could hold their own, even when he gave it out pretty rough, but if you could hold your own, I think you really gained his respect.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember, man, like that last holiday break right before he got diagnosed. I mean, we walked out of the rehearsal room. He gave me a big bear hug. I think Alton was with me. Give him a big bear hug and said, "We'll see you soon." And it was just so sad to not see him again, not have that rehearsal with him again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember he had no idea. He thought he would be back. He kept saying after so many weeks he was going to come back. Things would resume. And I actually still have his briefcase exactly how he left it. I've only been able to open it not even a handful of times, but everything that he had when he left, thinking that he would be back, is exactly the way it was.
Wow. How cool is
Yeah.
that? How cool is that?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's it's definitely funny. Everyone kind of has, their stories about how he was pretty tough on them, but I think retrospectively, whether it was him or anyone in our lives that was tough on us, I think it's because they care. They care so much. If he didn't care, he wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even waste his time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I remember, I don't remember which year, sophomore or junior year, there was another great drummer there, and I knew he was better than me, right? And so I think he could tell I was a little intimidated, and he had already heard me play a few, quarters or years or whatever, so he knew what I could do, and he took me aside and said, "Hey, man, I know that he's a good drummer, but you know what? Here, you do good things too, and so and so thinks the time's much better from last year, and he would pump me up a little bit. So he had those moments too where he took you aside and gave you a little love and encouragement too, like all great teachers do. I mean, you have to do a little of both, I think. So
Right. Yeah, it's a good balance to have as an
yeah,
instructor.
right.
So do you still keep in touch with the bandmates from that class? Do you get to
Um,
play with them?
Yeah, there's a lot of great guys. I mean, Brian Connell was my roommate and good tenor sax player. I think he kind of lives in the area, but doesn't kind of do the big band circuit like I do. And James Suggs was a great trumpet player. I just had an album come out last year that's awesome. And I think he's settled maybe in Florida. And Chad Gridley was a Barry sax player in that band, was just awesome. And he might even be in Florida too. But yeah, I just on Facebook, like seeing what they're up to and that sort of thing. I play with Sherry Lucetti all the time. She'll come back into town, and I get lucky enough to get to play with her, a few times a year because of that. And we always discuss while we're playing. There's a different energy, a different spirit with people that have come through that program, was touched by Tony. And you can tell when you're playing with them. You always talk about that when we're playing, and reminds me of the amazing concerts we would have in Kilcawley Center. Just huge crowds cheering for soloists. Huge applause at the end of tunes. And I remember when I got picked for the intercollegiate band. It was in Cincinnati at the Ohio Music Educators Association convention, and we got together with a bunch of collegiate all-stars from different places. We had like 5 or 6 in that band. I mean, a lot of YSU cats. And we played, and it was the Cincinnati Conservatory's jazz band director that was running it. And we got to the concert, and our audience showed up in power, they were cheering and doing all the things they do at our concerts. And he came over to us afterwards and was like, how did that happen? He just couldn't, probably nobody shows up for his concerts, and it's a little more difficult for audiences when you're in college, to get them there. And we were just like, it was Tony, he built that thing, and made that special, and he realized that seeing that crowd that night. So
Oh, wow. Yeah, those crowds were unbelievable.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah. Anywhere else, like the classical people wouldn't come to a jazz concert, and at other colleges and stuff, and everybody showed up for those things. It was pretty cool.
Right, right. Yeah, I miss that energy so much. I mean, the music, the laughter. My dad was so animated on stage, and he'd always crack some jokes, and
Oh yeah.
but that energy that everyone was feeling in that room for those concerts, it's like I've never really experienced something like that again. Of course, if you go to a concert, you do, but it's not the same. That was
No,
really special.
yeah, it was definitely a special thing for that area for those concerts for sure. I think everybody that was there, attended one, felt that and knows what that was about. It was cool.
Yeah. So would you be up for playing in the reunion concert that I'm trying to organize?
Oh yeah, I'd be honored. I remember getting there to YSU and trying to grab up all the CDs I could of the jazz program and everything, and that alumni one just is awesome. I love listening to it to this day, and I'll never forget the first Legacy concert. It's kind of just because the concert was so great, but the night before my house had been broken into. So,
Oh no.
yeah, I was staying with three guys at a house just off campus, which was probably dumb anyway. But I just got a ton of stuff stolen, and was kind of in a haze that day, and showed up at the concert. And I was like, oh, phew, it was kind of a relief. But I mean, that concert was so much fun, and the energy and camaraderie of everybody up there, and Mike Hamiff. Or just arranged a drum feature for me, which I haven't gotten to play because of this pandemic. But I'm looking forward to doing that someday. There's just so many great players that want to share and celebrate Tony's legacy. So that'll be something to remember. I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for everything that you shared, and